November 23rd, 1996. 26 years ago today. Things start to get interesting after I am initiated into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and going to weekly classes at Temple Tahuti. Private classes, which was really, really fun. Though, let's look at this first entry. Okay. So, it's quite a long entry, actually. Interesting. But that makes sense because I was getting serious. So November 23rd, 1996. Cold, snow, impartial, thoughtful. So you can see I'm including my mental state, which is good. I had been giving some serious exercises to do outside of my diary, but don't know if this is the best place to explain them. So I'll just get through this. 1. My LBRP was performed with peace and happiness. My vibrating could be more to my liking. It's a very good thing to include the state. It's very, here it says perform with peace and happiness is describing the state in which you're entering into the ritual, which is a thing worthwhile noting. And also that, the vibrating wasn't, I was learning still. This is the learning stages, because all of a sudden the way I'd been doing it on my own, I thought, it was the best I could figure from Israel Regardie's books and Donald Michael Craig. But when you see another magician actually do it for the first time, it's like, oh, it's shocking. And so I was then working on getting up my vibratory techniques as rapidly as I could, but it only comes through practice, so you just keep going. So LBRP this morning, and this is in the morning. I should have written down that this was in the morning or when this was during the day. I still was not really good at doing that at this stage. But that's what you get, I guess, for being 15. And also, clearly, no one was giving me really too much guidance yet. So that happened throughout the neophyte grade, that I got more and more guidance. 2, my middle pillar was not as good as it could have been. I'm a bit disorganized. We'll get back to that later. But at least I got through the middle pillar that day. A lot of these are probably, I'm sometimes harsh on myself because it's hard to remember the context of everything, like were you rushing to school, or did you have a lot of homework, or what was going on in your family life, or friends and all of that. But I don't really note those things hardly ever in my magical diaries. 3, neophyte. Importance of vibrations. So this is me taking notes on a lesson in my grade material for neophyte. Procedure A was simple, but as always, exciting. Procedure B, the emotions that I recreated were excitement, love, and aggression. As I vibrated Ehiye, I felt all three at once rise up into me. After my right leg grew shaky, and I felt like falling backwards, overwhelmed. Afterwards, so after doing the exercise, my right leg was shaky and I was overwhelmed. So it was a very powerful exercise, and I was definitely making progress on it, which it makes sense because, vibration is a whole extensive technique, but we'll talk about that later. Note, the exercise for vibrating middle C is difficult due to the instability in my voice. So I was definitely struggling with finding and maintaining a note, which is interesting to look back on, I suppose. It's I'm not sure why. I wish I had given more details, but again, hard to remember time constraints so far back, and I want to be kind to my younger self. 4, this night, I once again performed the LBRP, and my sensations were as always, though I cannot remember specifics. So, the general things that are experienced when performing the LBRP were experienced, the usual stuff, but there wasn't any particular emphasis on one thing occurring or another thing occurring. It just all sort of went as normal. Again, I've been performing this ritual for many years at this point. But obviously making the mistake of not performing the LIRP. I'm just doing the LBRP, and that can be talked about at length further. What else did I get up to? So that I did morning and evening rituals, which means it was probably a school day, but I just don't remember. And I didn't make notes of that. I wish I'd made notes of those sort of more mundane things. I really do. That would have been nice. So learn from my mistakes, if you will. 5, my middle pillar I did in the position against the wall. there was a tremendous strain on my legs, but I nevertheless willed myself through it. So not only did I do 2 middle pillars that day, but the second one I did in the yogic sort of posture. I call it a yogic posture, but it's really just a posture. And doing that in the evening before bed, like, I clearly wasn't worried about keeping myself awake at night. Yeah, it happens sometimes when you do powerful ritual work at night, but it's not like a rule of thumb that I've found that ritual work's going to stop you from sleeping. Usually it balances you out so much and fills you with so much peace, and also exhausts you a bit if you're doing it hardcore, that you lie in bed. I'd write in my diary, wrap it back up in the silk, and go to bed. So what can I draw from this? Vibration, first of all. Practicing it is the only way to get good at it, and experimenting it and pushing it. The best rule of thumb guidance to practice vibrational technique is to do it as loud as you can. This is not necessarily how you do vibration, especially in the Golden Dawn, but it's a tremendously useful tool for learning and exploring the ranges of vibrational tones and timbres you can create with your voice by pushing it as loud as you can. Sort of like in singing, when I do singing exercises, they're so loud, like you have to often, depending on where you're living, ask neighbors permission to practice from this time of the day, because they're very, very loud. And that's what you need to do to practice your voice and develop your notes, especially your range, clarity, pitch. You got to do it at volume with singing. So it makes sense that it's the same thing with vibration. Obviously, there's singing techniques that don't require that same sort of thing. But if you follow Seth Riggs' method of singing like I do, it's speech level singing in practice, but the techniques require a lot of the same stuff I did when I was doing operatic singing. A lot of these really, well, we don't need to get into it now. Plus, it would look very weird for me to do it here and sound very distasteful on your ears. But vibration has even all these techniques in the Golden Dawn tradition, that there's a lot more to it than just the sound and the vocal process behind it. There's tons of stuff going on, and many people have come up with new techniques of vibrations or exercises that develop them, and they're all wonderful. The idea of this whole new movement of rejecting vibrational techniques, which the Golden Dawn brought into magic, because for some reason, and in favor of just like singing it lightly, which is fine, or just intoning it, which is fine. But the idea that those two things should be preferred because vibration is just some GD BS is very weird. It's very weird. I mean, especially if you consider the broader understanding of what vibration and sound and nature and reality are composed of. I shouldn't have to, it doesn't seem like I should have to be on a soapbox about that one, but nevertheless, I find myself yelling into the void. Disorganized. So I mentioned that in an earlier entry there. I mentioned that I was disorganized, I believe. I am a bit disorganized. I wish so much that I had said more about that. Why didn't you say what was disorganized? Do you know, comment on it? I guess it's just how I was feeling, probably, but maybe I could have, if I had made better notes, I could then say, well, look, you should set up your altar better, you should clean it more, you should have a shower before your rituals and put on your robe or something like that, and to organize yourself a bit better. But who knows? I mean, take what you want from this. And so, yeah, standing up against the wall and then lowering my back to a seated position, it puts tremendous strain on the legs. Not everyone can do this physically. If you're not able to do it physically, then don't do it physically. Maybe find a different actual yoga posture and try that out if you want to experiment with variations on the middle pillar exercise. But yes, so that's what I did. We called it the Reichian one after Wilhelm Reich, of course. The Reiki middle pillar, that a lot of people who learned that along with me in those days and practiced it have ceased doing it. It was very intense and very difficult, and we would do it for very long stretches of time till at the end your leg is sometimes just smacking on the floor, just like because of the strain on your body. But I never hurt myself. I never was injured from it. And I always had the most amazing experiences with this ritual that I've ever had using that technique. So there you go. pushing yourself has its benefits. And I guided many people, hundreds and hundreds of people over the years in the Golden Dawn through this form of ritual, taking hours to do it sometimes with over 100 people at once in the temple doing it, and having tremendously powerful breakthroughs and ecstatic experiences and just cleansings and purifications and all that stuff. You can get a lot out of the middle pillar exercise, but if you don't already know that, well, you probably already do if you're listening to me here. So yeah, it was an interesting diary entry. I know the diary entries coming up just get more and more wild and fascinating, and I look forward to doing them mostly on hermeticmysteryschool.com, where you can join my free cyber guild, and we keep things a bit more private and comment outside of the public sphere, and chat about these things more. So you're welcome to join that for free at hermeticmysteryschool.com and get more of these, including the next upcoming ones. Oh, look at that. It's 4:20. Gotta go. Joking. Though I do have to, go shopping for food.